Hi, everybody. This is your coach, J.DP,
And Dr. Lori. Hey, everyone.
and you are excellent. Welcome back to Coach's Corner, New Year's edition. It's 2025, baby. Lori, how you doing today?
I am doing great. This is going to be an amazing year.
So let's just jump right into it. There's a lot of stuff that we have to cover, but first and foremost, we were just talking about how you had a visit by your son and new grandbaby. How was it?
Oh my gosh. Best thing ever. Everybody told me how amazing it is to be a grandparent. It's better than that. I mean, she is a gorgeous, feisty little 10-week-old girl, and I love her to death. So it was amazing to be able to hold and cuddle a baby. And maybe even more amazing was to be able to spend quality time with my own baby. My youngest son was here
Wow.
for a couple of days, and quality time matters.
Yeah, quality time does matter. And over the holidays, I did have a wonderful time with my own family. Again, have my wife and my three girls, and got to see everybody, hang out, do some quality time, and just I'm so thankful.
Yeah, the quality time matters. I was sharing with you before that one of the best conversations I had with my almost 28-year-old son was in the car on the side of the road, pulled up before I was going to drop him off. He wanted to talk, and I was like, okay, we're pulling up. We had a really important, good conversation, the kind that only happens when you're physically together.
I know. Sometimes, you need to get in the car or the bicycle or the train or the plane and, log that FaceTime, that time in the flesh, face to face, how important that is for people.
It really matters. I mean, I've had lots of conversations, and so have you, especially with kids, maybe by FaceTime. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the
Sometimes I find it interesting, and maybe this is a generational thing, but my girls would get on a group call on FaceTime,
same.
and they are just twittering and laughing and having a great time, and their closeness is something that I really am, as a parent, am proud of, right? Because all the girls just
Sure.
get along really well, but the way they communicate. But when they are on FaceTime, they are just having a good time.
The three of them together.
But when they are together in the same room, it is total bedlam.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, bedlam in a good way, because it's just loud and laughter and, just the girls having a great time. So, uh, something to be said about face to face, being
I
there in the
miss that
flesh.
bedlam. I'll take it.
Yeah. Okay. Lori, we were talking and you would hit on something and that is very important. You were talking about this year, right? The coming year, in which you have what you're thinking about it, how you're looking at it. So let's pick up where we left off.
All right, I'll pick up this ball and then I'll toss it back to you. So
Okay.
this year for me, I'm calling it a year of growth.
Mm,
Okay? I'm calling it a year of growth, and I'll explain why. Last year, I missed this trend during the pandemic, but last year, just about this time, I started my sourdough journey. And a year later, I'm happy to say I'm confident that I'm close to mastery. Consistently, I'll never say I've mastered it. There's always a lot to learn, but consistently really delicious bread. And I think, if I remember correctly, I bought 2 bagels one time last year and otherwise didn't buy any bread.
wow.
So A plus for me. This year, I sat down at the beginning of the year and thought, well, I mastered sourdough. Now what? And then I decided that I had seen a plant store on Instagram. And so I decided to check it out. And I had been looking and looking for something. And I adopted this baby. Her name is Molly. She is a
I'm
money tree. I bought a Pilia. I bought a Pilia. Her name is Penny. And I bought another plant that I don't remember the name of, and her name is Annie. So now I have about 8 plants in my lovely little space. And this is a year of growth. So symbolically and personally, this is really for me a year of growth. And my goal is to keep all these lovely babies alive and healthy.
Mm, awesome. I
And what
look
about
forward.
you? What are you thinking that this year is going to be for you?
Well, this year, I mean, we talked about that in the last episode, right? So for me, this year is rediscovery, not necessarily reinvention, but retapping into
Yeah.
me and what makes me special and resilient, and more importantly, tapping into resiliency. You know, so this next year is all about that. Is all about, if I think it, do it kind of year, right? Um, and the one thing that I have committed to this year is to do a little bit more travel. And so in the spring, I've never been to Spain. And so the spring is, I want to go to Barcelona and this and that. My daughter, my eldest daughter went, she's like, it's amazing. You got to go. So I was like, okay, that's kind of like a goal, is to do a little bit of travel.
You said something interesting, and that was, sort of manifesting things.
Mm.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. And it's an interesting thing. It made me think about something that I talk about with my clients a lot. People talk about their dreams and their hopes and what they want to do. And a lot of times, one of the powerful questions we get into is, what's holding you back?
Mm.
What's stopping you? And those are the times that I have to remember to sit with the silence and give people time, give my clients time to process. Because people have asked me the same kind of questions, right? I mean, I'm not calling the kettle black. It's not an easy question to answer. And for me, in my coaching, when I'm wearing my coaching hat, I consider it a win when somebody, I'm going to do it on purpose, kind of looks off to the side because they're processing something that I said to them and they're thinking. And it made them get out of their routine responses and go, oh, let's talk about that.
You asked that question, like, what's stopping you? And all of a sudden, I was just like, oh my God, I hope she's not asking me that question, because I'm going to do the eye roll, like, I don't know.
So for me, and when I get that in a coaching session, I'm like, oh, high five, Lori. High five, Lori.
And when you ask those open-ended questions and you sit with the silence, remember, that's the number one lesson: sit with the silence, be comfortable in the silence.
Yeah.
Like you just said, give the client time to process. And that is, I think, one of the toughest questions, but one of the ones that trigger breakthrough,
Right,
for clients.
It's interesting. That is a really tough one. And the other tough one I got from a colleague who actually went through our LCOT program a couple of years before us. And her name is Janet, and she said one of her best, most powerful questions is, what are you tolerating?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, sit with the silence. And, that reflection, that ability to have the space to think about, yeah, I'm not happy about this, but I'm putting up with this. And what am I putting up with? And why am I putting up with that? And is it serving my ends and my means? Can be one of those, oh my goodness, I really have to think about this for a second moments. So thanks to Janet for that really powerful question.
Yeah. I mean, one question that I have for you then is, from a coaching perspective, what do you got planned? What is your goal for the year when it comes to coaching?
Yeah, my goal is like probably has several prongs. I think one is to ramp up my practice.
Mm.
I it's been on a slow launch, and it's time to ramp it up. Been happily working with my clients, I think there's more that I can do and I want to do.
Mm.
I want to do some speaking. I really want to do some speaking. In my prior life, I spoke for a living and I love it and I get energy from it. And there's value in sharing one-on-one and having those conversations one-on-one, but there's also value in having some group conversations. And, I'm equally comfortable doing that in person or on Zoom. I spent the last few years of my professor career teaching virtually on Zoom, which was a huge growth moment for me. Huge. Nothing I had done before had prepared me for that. Nothing. I loved it. It was a chance for me to jump in, figure out new ways to engage with people, figure out new tools to facilitate those. And so I'm equally comfortable speaking virtually and getting not just speaking virtually, but facilitating conversations virtually. And I think that's what it's really about. Even as a professor, I was never about being sage on the stage. I'm not comfortable with that role. I certainly knew more than my students, but for me, it's about my students not just absorbing what I'm telling them or my clients. It's about them doing the hard work and us engaging.
Hit on something really interesting there. The coach should never work harder than the client. I mean, for me, what do I want to achieve as coach is, and I think we talked about this, is to expand the URXcellent brand, right? Work more with you because you working with you is such a pleasure and a hoot.
Gotcha.
Thank you. So I plan to split URXcellent YouTube channel into a couple of different channels. The first one is URXcellent, right? Coaching for underestimated people from under-resourced backgrounds. Bottom line, that's what we're all about. The second one is URXcellent Health, because I'm in the middle of at the beginnings of a health journey. Last year I kind of kicked it off to become more healthy, more intentional about my health. Because next year, you talk about milestones, is a huge milestone. 2026 is a huge milestone year for me because I will be 65 years old.
That is a big one.
Yes. And I always do that because a lot of people say, "Oh, you don't look it." When but
you have to do like the fonts. You go to, well, he had hair, but you go to do that and you go, no need.
That's why I always do it like this. Like, yes.
That's fine.
But it is 65's around the corner. And so I want to get ready for it. And it's kind of like that old skit on Saturday Night Live with Billy Crystal as Lorenzo Lamas. And he says, "Darling, it is better to look good than to feel good."
Oh, we're bringing up all the good old stuff.
So I want to look good and feel good because that's important to me. I want to be healthy because I don't know when, and I should be so blessed to have grandchildren. I want to be that granddad. Let's go. Let's pick up and go. Where are you going? I'm taking your kids somewhere. Leave me alone. And to be able to chase them around. And so URXcellent Health. And then spinning this off into Coach's Corner channel. Right. Because you and I as coaches, I realized that it's not necessarily us about coaching. One thing is I've reviewed over the holidays, our videos on Coach's Corner, is we're learning. We're on this journey together as coaches.
Oh, and the day we stop learning is the day we got to set aside our coaching hat. We should always be learning.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that reflected in your review of the work we've done together. That, first of all, as a teacher, nothing makes me happier. But there's so much to learn. And I said I mastered sourdough, and at the same time I said I can never claim full mastery of anything, and I would not even get close to claiming mastery of this craft. There's a lot to learn, and that's part of the fun of it for me, and I think for you too.
When you said extend the brand, it's my intention is to put content out there on a semi-regular basis that is relevant to folks that are out there that watch us, that we're not only are we saying interesting things, but in sharing our experiences and our vulnerabilities and our successes and our failures. But, hopefully this helps people. And that's what I want, is to help people.
Shout out to anyone who's listening. That is our goal, is to help people and to support people in the way that other people have supported us. There's things that you want to hear us talk about, comment. Let us know, or reach out to one of us. Let us know. We're not holding the keys to the kingdom close to our heart. We're sharing that, right? This is about all of us getting better at what we do.
Yeah. And if you're out there and you need somebody to talk to in terms of coaching, or what's that next move, or what does it look like? How do I get from point A to point B? That's what coaching is all about. And that's what URXcellent is all about. But Lori, you know what our most highly rated short was?
What was it, J.DP?
You talking about, let me see, let me get it right here. Hang on. No. With 404 views, finding peace of mind amongst the tumult.
Oh, love that word, tumult.
I know that's you. I mean, it's just you talking about finding peace of mind, and it made me realize that people kind of get, the zen, but the practical is what people are craving. And you just talking about, hey, during this time, there's crazy times, but the bottom line here is, I'm just going to find the peace amongst all this craziness. And it was the most highly rated short of our last episode.
That's awesome.
And as a matter of fact, you are literally the queen of URXcellent, because if I look at the shorts, just the shorts, the next one that has the highest rated views is almost 500. And
What?
that one is finding your voice as a coach. But the bottom line here is that what we're saying here is resonating with people.
Well, and that is the bottom line, and that is what matters. My hands are always in the picture. That is what matters. I talk with my hands. But that is what matters. And it was always my goal in my professional career, before teaching, before coaching, and it's my goal now, is to share my truths, because once we share them, I'm convinced that other people feel more comfortable to share them. Oh, I didn't know you went through that. I didn't know you felt that. And I am at a place in my life, and I want to be able to help people and help people see themselves in a way. If my story resonates with them, great, right? But I don't need to hide who I am. I spent a long time hiding, masking, stealing, right? Making everything look shiny new. And I fooled a lot of people. One of my close friends said to me, "Really? Recently?" I said, "Really?" And I don't need to do that anymore. And I think it gives other people permission.
Yeah, and I think that's brave, and thank you for that, because it's brave to just unmask yourself, not only to, someone that you sort of know, right, me, but to folks that are sort of sitting in and listening in, One of the things that I have to overcome, and if we're being vulnerable, and let's just be honest here, and I harken back to Howard Stern. At one point he says, this person walked into Howard Stern's studio, this is years ago, and said, Howard looked at him and said, "You're not being honest." And the person said, "Well, because you're basically an a-hole." And the person says, and Howard Stern looked at him and says, "I'm an a-hole because you're not being honest." And once that person realized what it was, and then they actually engaged in conversation because they were being honest. So in all honesty and vulnerability here with you is that, for me, it's to answer the question, what's stopping you? Right? And I have grappled with that "what's stopping you" question, as a matter of fact, today, which led me to the realization, if I think it, just do it. right?
I hear you. There's things I want to achieve that have been on my list for a while.
Yeah.
Why? What's holding me back? Is it fear?
Mm.
And we've talked about this, right? Think we talked about this last time. The most powerful words from my dad were, "Would it kill you to get a B?" So I have a bit of perfectionist tendencies. And so there is fear that it's not going to work. And I'm really trying, much like you, to say, try it, fix it
Yeah.
afterwards, do it, do
Yeah.
it.
It's sort of like I had to do something recently, and I felt such anxiety
Mhm.
and for how it would be received,
Of course.
and I was going down this spiral of oh, I'm not good enough, it's not good enough, I'm not good enough, it's not good enough, I'm not good enough, it's not good enough, people are going to get mad. And that's where I landed. People are going to get mad and they're going to
Interesting.
hate me and blah blah. Then I thought about it and I was just like, nah, if you think it, do it, and the consequences or whatever reactions are going to happen, it ain't you. And I just went ahead with it, did it, and done. And guess what? It wasn't me. As a matter of fact, my fears were unfounded because it was well received.
And you bring this up, and it's really interesting because I was working with a client at the end of last year that I've been working with for a while, and um, who had a similar experience, although their experience was more, I have to say this, and I have to make sure this is okay, and I have to make sure this person's feelings are considered, and that person, and there's so many things to juggle. And we talked about what happens if you're just clear about what you need. If you
Mm.
use radical candor, you care personally and challenge directly, and you just start clear with what you need. And I'm bringing this back to coaching. It took a couple of times together for my client to say, I'm going to try that. And having that thinking partner, for me, this is the joy and the value of coaching. I get it when I talk to you. My clients get it when they talk to me. Your clients get it when they talk to you. Is having that thinking partner and that mirror to bounce things off of and to be
Mhm.
able to look at it, have the time and the space to be able to look at it without spiraling, with somebody to say, stop,
So
let's look at it together.
you brought this up
Mm.
a couple times. Radical candor.
Mhm.
So are we saying now that Coach's Corner Book Club that's the first book that we're
I love
tasking our viewers to read is Radical Candor?
Oh, let's do it because there is so much to talk about in this.
All right, people, challenge laid down. Coach's Challenge. First book club book, Radical Candor. So
So here's the challenge, folks. Are you communicating with radical candor or with ruinous empathy
mm.
or obnoxious aggression? There's some really good catchphrases in there, but it really hits home. Um, and yes, challenge laid down. Let's talk about it.
All right.
It's a powerful framework for coaches. It's a powerful framework for all of us who are working day to day with other people, because having those hard conversations is hard. They're called hard conversations for a reason. It's
Yeah.
hard.
I once had an executive at my former company who read the book and was all about the radical candor. And at the time, I was just like, yeah. Then I read it and I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, I get
Oh,
it. I get where you're coming from now that I understand. So next Coach's Corner, let's kind of do a book review.
I love it. Let's
Okay.
do it. I have a whole list, former professor. I have a whole list of books we can.
So and guys, we're literally inventing stuff real time here. So Coach's Corner Book Club, and
Right.
we'll include the link to the book and in the description. So fear not. But the one thing that we'd like is for you guys out there who are watching is to give us some commentary. Let us know whether you like it, let us know you have any book suggestions. We want to hear from you. So we're kicking it off with that one. And if anybody comes up with a good book suggestion, and we have it on Coach's Corner, I'm going to up the stakes here and offer up a URXcellent t-shirt. We're printing up some new t-shirts, and I'll have the design here, and it's going to be amazing. So there it is.
And most importantly, I really want to hear what you're reading, and I want to know what's impacting you as a leader. What's changed the way you approach your work as leader? I want to know. I mean,
because these books, they're not just like popcorn reads and flash and trash. These are some serious books. Like my favorite, and I have a favorite, but and anyway, but it's about rules.
Is it the no rule?
That's for another episode, Laurie.
Oh, okay. I like it too.
But
On my shelf.
let's shift gears here. Recently, you had commented on a post by Rachel Provan about the 10 unwritten rules of leadership that everyone learns the hard way. Talk about hooking me into a title. What interested you about this post?
Well, I think much like you, I got hooked in because I said, oh my God, I started to read these and said, yep, wish I had learned that an easier way. Wish I had learned that an easier way. And I think, and I subsequently make my own post about what was the hardest for me, although there are many that were hard. I think some of them you can read about. Some of them people can tell you about. Some of them you can take training about. However, maybe much like parenting or other things, some things you have to learn the hard way. You can know it here by going through training and reading a book. You can't know it here until you either try it and it works or make the mistake and fail, right? And learn something from that. I mean, I'll be vulnerable and honest, and I'll tell you about one very funny mistake. It's not fun. It wasn't funny then. It is funny looking back. I remember I was sort of in a middle management role, and somebody who didn't report to me, I was just chatting with them at their door, and there was something taped to their door that was very well expired. And I went to take it down thinking I was being helpful, and the person got very upset. And I was like, and I didn't realize I was invading their space. I was doing something without their permission. Leadership lesson, right? Ask people. Ask, right? It's not yours. Ask. And I can literally picture myself at that door still. I don't remember the person's name. It was a woman, but I can picture her office. She was very upset with me for days until I went back and apologized. Right? I learned my lesson. And so for me, I think it's one of those, it was a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
There are 10 unwritten rules of leadership in this post. And again, it's in the description below. And we had an online conversation about it. And the one that got me was number 4, really resonates with me. And number 4 says, clear beats complex. Your team doesn't need a 45-minute explanation. What they need to know is what to do, why it matters, and when it's done. And I added a little bit to this, and I added my own 2 cents to this one, which was they need a vision.
Why?
And then what do you need to do? Why does it matter? And when is due? And I added, then you have to have trust that your team will figure out the hows, because therein lies the fun of any job. And I remember as a manager, I had a team of very specialized technical people. They were amazing. And shout out to you guys. You know who you are. And I tell them what the vision, I tell them what needs to be done, why it matters, and when, right? A time frame. And I said, I am here to remove any obstacles or get you any resources that you need. But the bottom line is tell me how we should do this. And they came up with like the hows, and they were having so much fun. And my job was to coach them to success as a manager. And in doing so, our productivity as a team went up, and our customer satisfaction rating went up as well. And that for me was very powerful. I learned that early, but sometimes it's so hard. Trust is so hard. And that's the critical component.
That I love this. And it reminds me of the other one that I talked originally about, it was rule number 2. When people are giving you feedback, ask yourself, are they trying to hurt me or help me? And that was, I had a mentor who kept telling me, detach, Lori, detach. And that was a very hard lesson for me to learn. But I think the other one that was super powerful, that in many ways relates closely to what you're talking about, is number 9. And number 9 is that the best leaders listen more than they talk. 80-20, right? Listen. And the reason I'm bringing that up, because I think it has a lot to do with trust. Nobody wants to be lectured to. Everybody wants to figure it out. That's how you help your team grow. That's the fun part of it. That gives your team something to put on their resume, that they were creative and that you were the one facilitating that, which, by the way, is our job, certainly at a middle management level, facilitating that. So listen more than we speak. And I think a lot of particularly new leaders but we're insecure. I have to prove to you how smart I am. I'm not sure I deserve this title. I have to prove to you. We got to do it my way. I have a plan. Let's just do it. Maybe that was me. Listen, because as you just said, they came up with some really brilliant things to do. Maybe you would have come up with them, maybe not, but you improve the productivity of your team in the process of trusting them. And I think listening is an important part of that.
Well, we talked earlier about silence, and number 10 in this, that silence in your meetings it's not agreement, it's fear. You may not think you're scary, but it takes a lot of work to convince people that it's safe to speak up. So in my experience, I am not one of those people in meetings. So in meetings, some certain meetings, I really don't have anything to say. And so regardless of whether there's trust in the room or not, I just don't have anything to say. But when I do, I'm going to say it. And I remember this manager, just, John, you didn't have much to say. Yeah, I didn't. And when I do, I will say something, because I don't speak just for the sake of speaking. I said to this person, I said, never underestimate the power of an introvert. Because I might not be saying, but I'm doing a lot of thinking. And if you ask me a question directly, oh yeah, or if there's something I need to contribute, but I may find myself in situations where my contribution is not really going to move the dial or make that much of a contribution to pushing things forward. And I know this, just my experience, but when we reach that point where it's like, yes, I will ideate with you and then collaborate. And then if the spark hits me, my hand is going to go up. I'm going to say, okay, here's my 2 cents. And this person looked at me and said, because when you do speak up, it's deep. But one thing I learned is people want to know what's going on in your mind. However, how does your mind work? And so what I found myself doing was saying, just ask me.
It's interesting because what was going on in my head as you were saying that is a technique, and I want to share it with our listeners as a way of encouraging those comments and encouraging people to say things. First of all, listen more than you speak. Okay. But secondly, there's a subtle semantic shift that you can use. A lot of times I hear people when they're giving talks or they're in meetings, I'm presenting all my stuff, and they say, does anyone have any questions? And then they cross their arms and you hear, right? The crickets come out. Because first of all, no one wants to do this, but the semantic shift, and it involves sitting with the silence, is to say, what questions do you have? Not does anybody have any questions? What questions do you have? You're inviting them. You're expecting them. And then you sit, cross your arms or not, you sit with the silence. What questions do you have?
I was notorious because we were being team meetings, Lori. And I'm talking about some seriously bright people from across the country on this Zoom call. Any questions? In silence. And it would drive me crazy because I know that there are questions. So I learned a rule: 3, then me. 1 to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have a question. Well, I
It's
have a comment.
that's a really good technique for people who find themselves jumping in all the time and over participating. I've heard that rule done a couple of ways. One is count 3, and the other is let 3 other people speak.
Right.
And then I'm allowed to say something a second time.
Right.
So I think we've given people some strategies, and I encourage the folks that are listening, try these out. If you're the kind who always wants to jump in and have something to say, give other people. Listen more than you speak. And if you are leading a meeting, try for a week to ban the phrase, any questions? Try to ban it and ask, what questions do you have? Because you're assuming, and you knew, right, on these Zoom meetings, you knew people had questions. So what questions do you have? And sit for longer than you think is necessary. Very placidly, I'm waiting. I'm going to wait because I know there's questions. And sometimes I would say, I know I can't have been that crystal clear. It's a bit of self-deprecation, right? It's a way of getting people to say, oh yeah, you kind of weren't. I didn't quite get what you were saying. And letting your guard down can help other people let their guard down. What questions do you have for me?
Lori, there have been instances, and I want to get your take on this. And again, this is just off the cuff. Literally 2 coaches talking.
Yeah.
I was asked in a meeting. Well, not me personally, but the room was asked.
Yeah.
What do you think? Where do you fall on that?
I think it depends on how much psychological safety has been built up among the team or the people in that meeting. That's a loaded question. That's my gut reaction. And I think a better way to phrase that is to be more specific. That's a very broad question. If I'm sitting in the meeting, I don't know if you want me to talk about A, B, C, or J. But I think perhaps as the leader of that meeting, instead of just saying, what do you think? It could be, what can we do to improve blah? Right? J. What's the flaw in this? Right? To ask a more pointed question with that same humility, right? To say, I don't know everything. Right? We talked about radical candor. My other favorite phrase is confident humility. Right? And I think it applies here. It's Adam Grant's phrase. And that is, I presented you something. Instead of just saying, what do you think? Help me improve it. How can we make this better? without saying it, but right, you're saying, I'm pretty confident in this idea. But I know it's not perfect, and I want your feedback. We can do better together. So yeah, I think what do you think is a very loaded question, and I didn't like it either in meetings. And I would sit on my hands.
And
Just like you, I wouldn't. I don't
and
answer.
that's kind of funny when we talk about, asking that direct, what do you think? And then all of a sudden, like, is it putting people on the spot, or do I have the confidence and trust and the safety to be able to say, okay, I think blah, 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 without having you kind of, poo-poo all over it.
And I think it goes back to psychological safety, right? I
Sure.
mean, I've been on teams, I've had bosses where I felt free and safe and comfortable and authentic enough to say, boss, that 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 needs some work.
So
You still have to be politically correct, but I've also had bosses where I know, and I think a lot of our listeners know, and I think you probably experienced this where you go, I think that's a terrific idea, boss. Let's work on that. Thumbs. And that, I think if we're not careful as the boss, as the leader, we can get in an echo chamber. Haven't created that level of psychological safety. And you talked about listening to your team, trusting your team, and seeing the real tangible results, not only in terms of your team's productivity, but in terms of customer satisfaction. Those are huge metrics.
So here's a question then. How would we as coaches, and this could be after we read Radical Candor, create the safety in the environment that promotes that ability to candor radically?
Radically. Ooh. This is a huge topic, and we can bring this. I think we can bring this up in a separate session.
Sure.
That ability to create that psychological safety involves so many things. Listening more than you speak, following through on what you say, fighting for your team, right?
Looking at this post and saying, hey, there are 10 things that of these 10, there's 2 or 3 that I could really work on.
Right. And none of us are perfect. And
Nobody's perfect.
Let's go back to what you said earlier. Look, it helps to have a mirror, somebody to be your mirror to hold this up. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, oh, yeah, those are some things I can work on. First of all, kudos to you for acknowledging that there are growth opportunities. Kudos to you for not having the arrogance, having the humility, not having the arrogance to say, oh, heck, I'm so good, right? Because none of us are perfect. So kudos to you. Secondly, just like the best athletes, we can all get better. And we don't get better by talking to ourselves in the mirror. We get better by someone challenging us, correcting our form, giving us homework, things to practice, reflecting back. Just like an athlete, just like an actor, we all get better with support. So, okay, that was a little soapboxy.
No, I just let her go. Let her go.
Let her go. So I want to encourage all of you, if you're thinking about engaging a coach, just like John was talking about, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. And that's a good point to wrap up. So, Lori, what have we learned today?
I learned that I'm not the only one who has these challenges. And I think you and I identified here that some simple tweaks can make a big difference. And it really helps to have someone by your side to be a thinking partner. I really can't say it enough. You and I do this work for each other.
Yeah. So listen, if you're out there, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think about what we're talking about. Let us know if you have any topics you would like us to talk about. Lori and I we're discovering and we're growing as coaches. And we would love nothing more than to hear from you. So I invite you back for our next episode, where we're going to be talking about a number of things, including the first book in Coach's book club, which is Radical Candor, and the link to that book will be below. And maybe I might work on producing a surprise in and around this 10 list. I'll keep you posted with that one.
Tune in next time.
This is your coach, J.DP.
And Dr. Lori.
And as always, you are excellent. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Till next time.